When a child is born, it has no name. It holds no concept, no language. It doesn't know what mother means. It doesn't know the word hunger. And it doesn't know what pain island. Yet it still knows. It knows hunger and it cries. It knows pain and it struggles. It knows the warmth of arms, the sudden burst of light in a cold white room. The child does not need language to know. It does not need learning to know. That knowing is primal, immediate, unmediated. It is already there from the very first moment of life. But we often assume that we only know when we can think about it, when we have an answer, when we have information or an explanation. And yet, clearly, something in us is already aware of everything that happens, without saying a single word. When a sudden sound occurs, there's an instant recognition, before the mind even names it. What sound is that? When you see light, you have already seen it. Before the mind can say, that's a lamp, that's the sun, that's too bright. In every moment of the present, there is always a knowing that comes, before every thought. So what is this knowing? Is it the I? The ego? The mind with all its accumulated concepts? Or is it something quieter, more subtle, something not bound to any person, something untouched by time? We call it awareness, not as a new concept to study, but as a pointer to what has always been here. A pure knowing, free of interpretation, unshaped by the ego. Awareness is not given by anyone. It does not come from practice. It is the very ground of presence itself, the source through which all sensations, all experiences must pass. Every one of us has it. No one lacks it. But because we are so used to the voice in our heads, so used to concepts and descriptions, we forget this simple knowing. It has never left us. It only gets covered up by what we mistake for ourselves. So, for now, let us set aside every concept. We are not here to gain something new, but simply to peel back what hides what has always been here. Awareness is not knowledge. Knowledge is accumulated through time. Awareness is not. Knowledge is the result of memory, of study, of analysis. It depends on language, on concepts, on systems of thought, built through the course of life. A child may not know the name of a flower, but it still sees the color, it still feels the fragrance, it still senses the petal trembling in the wind. That seeing, that direct knowing, does not come from books or from experience. It comes from a deeper ground, beyond language. That is awareness. When we use knowledge to understand the world, we always stand at a distance. We see the world as an object. I am looking at the tree. I am hearing the sound. The very use of language splits subject from object, so life becomes a chain of interpretations. But in awareness, there is no such distance. There is no I standing apart to know. There is only pure knowing. No knower, no known. Only what is, here, alive. Knowledge always carries an attitude. It compares, it judges, it evaluates. It asks, is this like something I already know? Or is it different? Awareness does not. It holds no prejudice, no need to affirm, no need to deny. It doesn't seek conclusions. It is like light. Light does not choose what to shine on. It does not care whether it falls on garbage or on flowers. It simply shines. Awareness is like that. It simply knows. It knows without any filter, without ownership, without opinion. Knowledge takes time. You must learn, remember, connect information. Awareness does not take time. It is instant, always here, wherever you are, whatever you are doing. The moment you are not lost in thought, you can sense it. It doesn't need to name what's happening. It doesn't need to describe. It doesn't need to fit things into any framework of understanding. Even if you have no words for it, you still know what is happening. This is the key. Awareness comes before every word, before every explanation. And because it does not belong to knowledge, it cannot be conditioned. Knowledge is always shaped by culture, by education, by memory. But awareness is free. It does not belong to the past. It is not waiting in the future. It is the stream of knowing, flowing through every present moment, unwarped by personal history. Knowledge is something you can own, Awareness is what you are. Knowledge comes and goes. It can be wrong. It can change. But awareness does not come. It does not go. It is the unchanging ground, upon which all experience arises and falls. And if you pause deeply enough, without chasing knowledge, you will find that this simple knowing is still here. It has never left you. It has never disappeared. Awareness has no center, no ego, because it does not operate from, "I am the one who knows." In ordinary experience, we tie every act of perception to the sense of a self. I am looking. I am hearing. I am thinking. But if you observe closely, you will see the knowing comes first. When the idea of I arises, a sound appears, and it is instantly heard. In that very first moment, there is no specific listener, there is only the sound and the knowing of it. The thought, I am hearing, comes later, as the ego steps in, wanting to claim ownership. In truth, the I we usually identify with is not the real subject of awareness. It is only a psychological construct built from memory, experience, and the stories we tell ourselves. The ego needs the feeling of control, so it always positions itself between experience and reality, declaring, I am the one who is sensing this. But awareness does not need the ego to function. It operates naturally, without being limited by any self-image. When you are truly silent and observing, you will notice every sound, every image, every bodily sensation, every thought. They all simply arise and are known. There is no one actively doing it. Knowing does not belong to personal control. You cannot decide, I will hear the sound of cars for the next 3 seconds, or I will feel my breath exactly as I choose. All of it just happens, and the knowing of it also just happens. This truth reveals the nature of awareness. It is not personal, not located, not belonging to anyone. Awareness is like the vast open sky. It owns no cloud, while the ego is like a small bird passing through, temporary, fragile, and always imagining itself the center. But the sky remains whether the bird is there or not. Awareness remains whether the thought of I appears or not. And once you see this not as an idea, not through reasoning, but in silent, direct perception, you understand. You are not the one who knows. It is knowing itself that knows, without any personal mediator. Awareness has no opinion. It has no preference. It does not like this and dislike that. When a sound arises, awareness simply recognizes. There is a sound. It does not need to decide whether the sound is pleasant or unpleasant. It is only the mind that creates such judgments. I enjoy this music. I hate that noise. But awareness does not say anything. It only knows there is an appearance. And that knowing is pure, impartial, without bias. Because it does not choose, awareness is very close to silence. And silence here does not mean the absence of sound or movement. It means the absence of reaction. Someone sitting in the middle of a noisy city, yet hearing the sounds without resistance. That person is resting in awareness. On the other hand, someone sitting in a quiet forest, yet constantly reacting to the thoughts in their head. That person is not in awareness, but under the sway of the mind. Awareness does not take sides. Not with good or evil, right or wrong, should or should not. It is never drawn into dualities. It is simply the presence of knowing. And in that presence, everything is seen just as it island. When you look at someone with the mind, judgment appears immediately. This person is good. That one is bad. This one is dangerous. That one is trustworthy. But if you look from awareness, no judgment arises. There is only the human being present, with each movement, each expression, each nuance. And nothing needs to be added. This non-discrimination of awareness is not indifference. It is the clarity of seeing without distortion. Knowledge is always shaped by culture, by education, by memory. But awareness is free. It does not belong to the past. It is not waiting in the future. It is the stream of knowing, flowing through every present moment, unwarped by personal history. Knowledge is something you can own. Awareness is what you are. Knowledge comes and goes. It can be wrong. It can change. But awareness does not come. It does not go. It is the unchanging ground, upon which all experience arises and falls. And if you pause deeply enough, without chasing knowledge, you will find that this simple knowing is still here. It has never left you. It has never disappeared. Awareness has no center, no ego, because it does not operate from, I am the one who knows. In ordinary experience, we tie every act of perception to the sense of a self. I am looking. I am hearing. I am thinking. But if you observe closely, you will see the knowing comes first. When the idea of I arises, a sound appears, and it is instantly heard. In that very first moment, there is no specific listener, there is only the sound and the knowing of it. The thought, I am hearing, comes later, as the ego steps in, wanting to claim ownership. In truth, the I we usually identify with is not the real subject of awareness. It is only a psychological construct built from memory, experience, and the stories we tell ourselves. The ego needs the feeling of control, so it always positions itself between experience and reality, declaring, I am the one who is sensing this. But awareness does not need the ego to function. It operates naturally, without being limited by any self-image. When you are truly silent and observing, you will notice every sound, every image, every bodily sensation, every thought. They all simply arise and are known. There is no one actively doing it. Knowing does not belong to personal control. You cannot decide, I will hear the sound of cars for the next 3 seconds, or I will feel my breath exactly as I choose. All of it just happens, and the knowing of it also just happens. This truth reveals the nature of awareness. It is not personal, not located, not belonging to anyone. Awareness is like the vast open sky. It owns no cloud, while the ego is like a small bird passing through, temporary, fragile, and always imagining itself the center. But the sky remains whether the bird is there or not. Awareness remains whether the thought of I appears or not. And once you see this not as an idea, not through reasoning, but in silent, direct perception, you understand. You are not the one who knows. It is knowing itself that knows, without any personal mediator. Awareness has no opinion. It has no preference. It does not like this and dislike that. When a sound arises, awareness simply recognizes. There is a sound. It does not need to decide whether the sound is pleasant or unpleasant. It is only the mind that creates such judgments. I enjoy this music. I hate that noise. But awareness does not say anything. It only knows there is an appearance. And that knowing is pure, impartial, without bias. Because it does not choose, awareness is very close to silence. And silence here does not mean the absence of sound or movement. It means the absence of reaction. Someone sitting in the middle of a noisy city, yet hearing the sounds without resistance. That person is resting in awareness. On the other hand, someone sitting in a quiet forest, yet constantly reacting to the thoughts in their head. That person is not in awareness, but under the sway of the mind. Awareness does not take sides. Not with good or evil, right or wrong, should or should not. It is never drawn into dualities. It is simply the presence of knowing. And in that presence, everything is seen just as at island. When you look at someone with the mind, judgment appears immediately. This person is good. That one is bad. This one is dangerous. That one is trustworthy. But if you look from awareness, no judgment arises. There is only the human being present, with each movement, each expression, each nuance. And nothing needs to be added. This non-discrimination of awareness is not indifference. It is the clarity of seeing without distortion. It is not dullness. It is not ignorance. It is a deep alertness, yet one that is not entangled in the content of experience. You see clearly what is happening, but you are not stuck in it, not carried away by personal reactions. That is why, in meditation, there is such an emphasis on seeing things as they are. To see without adding, without subtracting. This very capacity of non-judgment is what frees us from suffering. Because every suffering is born from comparison, from opposition, from labeling life. When the mind says, this should not have happened, you suffer. When the mind says, that person deserves punishment, anger arises. But when you stand in the place where everything is known, without judgment, without division, you are no longer torn apart by the two poles of duality. You begin to touch a freedom that does not come from controlling the world, but from not being bound by your own reactions. And that is the original state of awareness. A ground that is untouched by opinions, emotions, or personal desires. In that non-discrimination, you do not lose sensitivity. On the contrary, you begin to see things more clearly, more truthfully. Because you are no longer looking through the lens of the mind. You are no longer seeing with the eye that wants things to be this or that. You are simply seeing them as they are. We have grown accustomed to identifying ourselves with the content of experience, with thoughts, emotions, and memories. And so, we always feel unstable, easily shifting, even conflicted with ourselves. In the morning you are happy, by noon you are anxious, by night you are sad. At times you feel confident, at times full of doubt. But if you pause and observe, you will see. These states are just waves rising on the surface of the water. And what is aware of all these fluctuations is not being moved by them. It is like the deep, still water beneath the ocean's surface, silent, unmoved. Awareness is not conditioned by circumstances. It is present when you are joyful and also when you are in pain. It is present when you succeed and also when you fail. That knowing remains whole. It is not lifted up when you are praised, nor brought down when you are blamed. Because it does not identify with content, it is untouched by results. It does not say, I am successful. It does not say, I am suffering. It simply knows. There is a feeling of success. There is a feeling of suffering. And that is enough. This timeless presence makes awareness the most reliable ground in life. Everything else can be lost. Loved ones may leave. The body may fall ill. Memories may fade. Abilities may decline. But awareness cannot be lost. No one can take it from you. You cannot lose it, because you are it. You may forget that you are awareness, but awareness has never left you, so there is nothing to search for. In those quiet moments, when you are no longer chasing after objects, no longer caught in thoughts, you can sense the presence of a silent but vivid knowing. It does not need to prove itself. It does not need to explain. It's simply island. And when you realize that this presence has never left you, you understand why the enlightened ones no longer fear, no longer chase, no longer doubt. Awareness was not born, so it cannot die. It does not begin at some point, nor end anywhere. All things arise and pass within it, like clouds drifting across the sky. But the sky itself remains vast, open, unbound by any shape. You do not need to hold on to awareness, because it cannot be lost. The only thing needed is to stop mistaking yourself for the things that come and go, and to rest in that which never comes, never goes, that which you already are. This is why awareness cannot be fully captured in concepts. Concepts are always a layer in between, an image created after the fact. They are the mind's way of shaping reality, but never reality itself. We need concepts in order to communicate, to analyze, to process. But the very moment something is named, described, or explained, it is no longer in its original state. It has already been shaped by the perspective of the observer, the speaker, and the language being used. Awareness, however, does not fit into any framework. We can speak about it in many ways. As the light of consciousness, as the ground of experience, as the source of wakefulness. But all such words are symbolic. It is like someone standing outside a house, trying to describe the house through a crack in the door, without ever stepping inside. A person who has never tasted water may know the word water, may know its chemical formula, may hear countless descriptions from others, yet still has no direct taste of what water actually island. In the same way, only when you are completely silent, when all interpretations have ceased, can awareness reveal itself as it truly island. That is why, in the tradition of meditative wisdom, awareness is not handed to you as an explanation. You will not be given a ready-made answer. Instead, everything you once believed to be an answer is gently dismantled, piece by piece, until there is nothing left to cling to. And right within that very groundlessness, pure knowing begins to shine. It does not come from accumulated knowledge. It comes from seeing what remains present, even when there is nothing left to understand, letting go of every effort. This is the most paradoxical, yet the most essential step in recognizing awareness. Because any effort to seek, to attain, or to grasp awareness is still the movement of the mind, and it is precisely the mind that veils it. Awareness is not an achievement. It is not a prize for the diligent. It is not the outcome of long practice. It does not wait for you at the end of a path. It is the very foundation of your existence, already here in each moment of the present, whether you are seeking or not. But we are so conditioned to striving. From childhood onward, every process of learning, training, or growth has been tied to goals, to effort. The mind runs on the mechanism of wanting to gain and fearing to lose. So when it hears about awareness, the mind immediately imagines a picture. This must be some profound, peaceful, luminous state, and I must practice hard to reach it. Yet even that picture, no matter how noble or spiritual, is still a product of imagination. And the moment you chase after it, you have stepped away from what is already here, running after a shadow painted by illusion. Letting go of effort does not mean apathy. It does not mean laziness or doing nothing with your life. It is a deep release from within, the end of craving to change the present, the end of trying to control experience. It is the capacity to allow everything to be as it is, without forcing, without interfering, without adding reactions. When the mind is no longer reaching for something, when you no longer grasp or push away, awareness begins to reveal itself. Not in noise, not in drama, but in profound silence, and in the most natural way. That moment, you are already in it. No action leads to awareness, but the knowing of each action, that itself is awareness. There is no path to walk, because you have never left it. The only thing needed is the ending of the search. And in that ending, you see what was never hidden in the first place. In daily life, most of us are not really living in the present. We are living in thoughts about the present. When you hear the sound of rain falling, you often don't just hear it. The mind steps in. It's raining again. Traffic will be terrible later. And just like that, thought pulls you away from the direct experience that is unfolding. When you see someone's face, you rarely just see. Memories, impressions, emotions about that person all come flooding in. And the seeing in that moment is no longer whole, because it is already covered by layers of concepts and reactions. In fact, that seeing is mostly distorted. Because people are impermanent, ever-changing. This is why you are invited to return to what is happening right now, to pause the entire process, to look without describing, to hear without responding, to feel without rushing to judge. A sound arises. You only need to know there is sound. A sensation in the body appears. You simply recognize a sensation is present. You don't need to label it itching, pain, comfort, or discomfort. You don't need to instantly react in order to fix or change it. Just see it as it is, fully. This is not a technique for achieving some special state. It is a subtle release, a letting go of the old habits of the mind. The habit of analyzing, naming, controlling, reacting. When you look without naming, you no longer stand outside of the object, observing it. You and the object are no longer two. There is only one seamless stream of experience, in which seeing and what is seen merge into one. In that moment, there is no separate experiencer. There is only experience itself, happening. When you return to what is happening now, you fall into direct contact with reality. Not reality as you think about it, but reality before it is filtered through language and interpretation. It is a way of knowing that is alive, immediate, vivid. It is not laziness, but neither is it tension. It is in the state of not resisting the present, not bending it to your will, that pure awareness begins to shine, not as something you can hold on to, but as the reality you dissolve into. When a thought arises, especially thoughts tied to worry, anger, or desire, we usually don't just notice it. We get pulled into it. And then, almost unconsciously, we act, feel, and react as if the content of thought were an unquestionable truth. That is why it is essential to observe without attachment. It means you stand at a natural distance between awareness and the stream of thought. You see clearly. There is a thought about the past passing by. There is an imagined image arising. There is an inner story being told. And all of that, none of it is you. Nor do you need to believe in it, nor act upon it. They are like waves on the surface of water, appearing, trembling, and fading. When you can see a thought simply as a thought, something strange begins to happen. Its content loses its grip over you. The old stories, the constant fears, the secret desires, they no longer dominate your emotions. They may still appear, but you are no longer controlled by them. You no longer react out of unconscious habit, because you no longer believe the thought to be you. This does not mean you must suppress thought, nor does it mean forcing yourself into a state of total emptiness. Quite the opposite. You allow thought to come and go freely. No blocking, no clinging. It is this non-attached seeing. That is the mark of awareness. A knowing untouched by the content of the mind. But here is a subtle point. The mind is clever at disguising itself. Sometimes it creates a new layer of thought in spiritual clothing. I am very awake now. I see the nature of thought. Or the opposite. I am not good enough, not deep enough to let go of these thoughts. Whether they sound positive or negative, they are still only content of the mind. And if you believe them, you fall again into identification, this time in a more subtle form. That is why observing without attachment is the essence of awareness. It takes patience and absolute honesty. You do not need to conquer the mind. You only need to stop being its victim. You do not need to defeat every thought. You only need to see clearly that you are not those thoughts. What is aware that a thought is present? That is the real you. And when you rest in that awareness, the mind may continue to function, but you are no longer controlled by it. This is what opens the door to freedom. Freedom does not come because you have gained control of the mind, but because you are no longer ruled by it. You begin to live from a deeper place, a place where everything can be seen without being dominated, where silent awareness is present, whether the mind is quiet or noisy. That becomes the ground for a life of clarity, where actions no longer arise from ignorance or blind reaction, but from a spacious alertness that goes beyond words and thoughts. Awakening, then, is not the moment of gaining something special. It is the complete absence of the one who wants to gain. It does not arrive as a sudden phenomenon that changes who you are at the core. It is what has always been here, simply covered over by layers of misperception and identification with the mind. When those coverings stop operating, when the mind no longer installs itself at the center, awareness begins to serve as the living ground of life, not as a concept to be preserved, but as a reality living through you. It does not need a name. In this state, there is no boundary between action and the one acting. There is no someone choosing this instead of that. Actions appear as natural expressions of life, without the middleman of ego, without the weight of personal agenda. When something needs to be done, it is done. When something needs to be said, it is said. Everything unfolds simply, without calculation, without burden, leaving no trace in the mind. You are no longer haunted by, did I just do right? Did I just do wrong? Because there is no I in the process anymore. When awareness becomes your way of living, you are no longer deceived by the mind's content. Thoughts still come, but you no longer mistake them for yourself. Emotions still arise, but you are no longer carried away by them. You may feel pain, but suffering does not follow. You may feel sadness, but you no longer drown in it, like someone trapped in a swamp. Instead, you stand upon a silent ground, watching everything come and go, without needing to do anything more. Awakening does not make you special. It does not set you apart from the world, in the way the ego might secretly hope. On the contrary, you become simpler, more ordinary, more natural than ever. No halo, no title of the Enlightened One, no thought of teaching, saving, or proving anything. You are no longer a person striving for perfection. You have become the very flow of life itself, empty, clear, and unbound. Liberation, therefore, is not the result of effort or austerity. It is the natural outcome. When illusions are no longer believed, when automatic psychological mechanisms are no longer fueled by old habits. Every time you do not react out of conditioning, that is a moment of liberation. Every time you do not step into the role of the story the ego has written, that is a step away from suffering. And when this happens again and again, without being forgotten, you no longer live as someone seeking truth. You become truth itself, without concept, without word, without form. This freedom does not come from changing the outer world. It comes from no longer being pulled by the inner one. You still live in the world. You still eat, speak, work, love. But you are not controlled by the mind. not confined by the ego, not tangled in invisible scripts. Everything still happens, but there is no one possessing the experience. There is only life itself, experiencing itself through this body and mind, in every breath, every movement, every gaze. Absolute freedom. Awareness is the prerequisite, the unchanging ground of all experience. Without awareness, there can be no true seeing, no real wakefulness, no wisdom. Awareness is the light that illuminates everything, but it does not choose, does not judge, does not interfere. It sees, but is not carried away by what is seen. It knows, but does not declare, I am the one who knows. Awareness is not something you must achieve, because it has never been absent. You do not need to become someone else. You do not need to reach some exalted state. You do not need to perfect yourself in order to deserve it. All such notions are inventions of the mind. And if, in the end, one thing must be said again, let it not be new knowledge, but a reminder. Remember, you lack nothing. Remember, the knowing is always here. Remember, you already had everything from the very beginning. What is shared here is not a new philosophy, but a pointing back to what you already know, not through concepts, but through the very presence that is alive in you now. And if anything remains after these words, let it be a silence in which you are no longer the seeker, but life itself, appearing, clear, whole, without needing proof. Thank you, not only for listening, but for truly being here. Only when there are people willing to return to the bare truth itself does a space like this have reason to exist. See you again in the next sharings, where we will not add anything new, but together remove what was never truly us. May you and your family be healthy, peaceful, and live fully with the awareness that is always present in every single moment.